The downfall of a galactic civilization, you know. If someone had told me the downfall of galactic civilization would start with a house cat wearing tactical armor, I probably would have laughed. Then again, anyone who spent 5 minutes dealing with humans should have seen this coming from parsecs away. The whole mess began in Conference Room Delta 9 of the Galactic Biological Preservation Council, a place so mind-numbingly anticipated that it makes the DMV look like a thrilling adventure. Picture this: 23 different alien species sitting around a holographic conference table, all pretending they care about interspecies wildlife protection, when really they're just there for the free synthetic coffee and the chance to complain about humans. Order, order, wheezed Council Chairman Zorp, a glowing, mushroom-like being from the planet XY-7. His translator box cracked with static as he continued. We are here to discuss application number 7,921,544 from the Terran Federation regarding the classification of, and I quote, domestic cats as Class 8 therapeutic companions. The room fell silent except for the gentle humming of life support systems, and what sounded suspiciously like Council Member Vlorp taking a nap. You could practically hear the collective eye rolling, which is impressive, considering half the species present didn't technically have eyes. Vexer, the Council's resident skeptic and proud owner of 4 arms that he used mainly for dramatic gesturing, leaned forward in his crystalline chair. He resembled what would happen if you crossed a praying mantis with a very irritated accountant. Let me get this straight, he said, his translator, struggling with what humans call sarcasm. The same species that turned computer gaming into a professional sport wants us to believe that one of their species that sleeps 16 hours a day is somehow therapeutic? The documentation appears to be in order, mumbled Secretary Huff, a 4-legged bureaucrat who looked like a cross between a horse and a tax auditor, complete with medical studies, psychological evaluations, and testimony from, quote, 34 very satisfied customers. Zorp's mushroom-like form rippled with what might have been confusion or indigestion. And remind me again, what exactly is a domestic cat? The holographic display flickered to life, showing a compact, furry creature with an innocent expression and a falsely calm demeanor. The council members leaned in, studying the innocent-looking animal with the kind of suspicion typically reserved for humans offering to help with something. According to the Terran Wildlife Database, Huff read from his tablet, the domestic cat, scientific name Felis catus, is described as, and I quote, a furry embodiment of pure dissatisfaction that exists primarily to sleep, eat, and occasionally make everyone feel inferior. He paused, his horse-like ears twitching. That's an unusual scientific classification. Vexer's forearms began their familiar dance of exasperation. Therapeutic? Therapeutic? This creature looks like it was designed to cause maximum chaos. Look at those eyes, that expression. It clearly says, I will judge you, and you know it. The humans insist it's for emotional support, Zorp said weakly. Of course they do, Vexer stated. Next, they'll be telling us that their snacks are actually very advanced therapeutic devices for boredom. Little did they know, that was literally application number 7, 9 to 1, 5 for 5. But that's a story for another day. The council spent the next hour debating the finer points of Terran mental health practices, completely missing the most important detail of all. They were dealing with humans who had just submitted 51 pages of completely legal documentation to classify what was essentially a furry agent of chaos as a therapy animal. They should have known right then that this wasn't going to end well. Now, let me introduce you to the man who would single-handedly prove that giving humans access to intergalactic bureaucracy was humanity's greatest achievement and the galaxy's biggest mistake. Meet Jake Morrison, mining engineer extraordinaire, currently stationed on asteroid Eridanus Prime, which is basically a floating rock so boring that watching paint dry would be considered premium entertainment. Jake was the kind of guy who could fix a fusion reactor with a paperclip and some creative swearing, but put him in a situation with nothing to blow up or repair, and he became dangerously creative. Think of him as a combination of MacGyver and that friend who always says, Hold my beer and watch this, right before something spectacular goes wrong. On this particular Tuesday, which was indistinguishable from every other day on a chunk of lifeless space rock, Jake was sitting in his prefab habitat, scrolling through his personal messages with the enthusiasm of someone watching grass grow in slow motion. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, his mining equipment was running perfectly for once, and he'd already reorganized his tool shed 3 times this week. That's when the message from the Galactic Biological Preservation Council popped up on his screen. Well, Jake muttered to himself, a dangerous grin spreading across his face. Looks like someone finally approved my therapeutic companion application. You might be wondering why a mining engineer on a remote asteroid would need therapeutic companions. The answer is simple. Jake had submitted the application during a particularly boring stretch last month, mostly as a joke and partly because he'd run out of things to read. He'd figured it would get rejected faster than a marriage proposal from a Zephyr tax collector, but here it was, official approval for 12 Class 8 therapeutic companions, complete with shipping arrangements and care instructions. The bureaucrats had actually said yes to giving him domestic cats on a mining asteroid, where the most exciting thing usually discovered was a new shade of space dust. Morris, Jake called out to his AI assistant, a standard-issue mining support system that had somehow developed a personality roughly equivalent to a disapproving librarian. Did you see this? They approved the cats. Oh, wonderful. Morris replied in that special tone AI systems reserve for when their human operators are about to do something spectacularly stupid. Because what this isolated mining operation clearly needs is a dozen of Earth's most psychologically aggressive mammals. Jake was already pulling up the delivery schedules, his engineer brain shifting into what his ex-wife used to call dangerous project mode. Think about it, Morris, he said. They're therapeutic companions. That means they're here to help with my mental health and emotional well-being. Your mental health is about to become everyone else's problem, Morris observed dryly. But Jake wasn't listening anymore. He was doing that thing humans do when they got an idea that's technically legal but morally questionable. His fingers were already flying over the keyboard, cross-referencing shipping manifests with his mining equipment inventory. You know what domestic cats need? Jake asked mostly to himself. Therapy, Morris suggested hopefully. Better tools, Jake said, completely missing the sarcasm. I mean, they're great at what they do, but imagine how much more therapeutic they could be with some minor improvements. Nothing crazy, just some basic enhancements. Morris's processors hummed with what sounded suspiciously like electronic resignation. Define minor improvements. Jake's grin broadened. Well, I've got plenty of titanium plating from the mining operation, and that new composite armor we're not using, plus all those sensor arrays just sitting in storage. Really, it would be irresponsible not to make sure my therapeutic companions are properly equipped for asteroid life. I feel compelled to point out that domestic cats are already equipped for virtually any form of life, including several that technically shouldn't be possible, Morris said. Exactly, Jake replied, completely missing the point. So, imagine how therapeutic they'll be once I make some upgrades. And that, ladies and gentlemen, and various other sentient beings, is how a bored human engineer with access to military-grade mining equipment decided that what the galaxy really needed was cybernetically enhanced cats. The Galactic Biological Preservation Council had just handed Jake Morrison 12 of nature's most efficient chaos machines, and called them therapy animals. 3 weeks later, Jake Morrison stood in what used to be his equipment storage bay, admiring his handiwork with the parent watching their child graduate college pride. If that child happened to be a furry weapon of mass destruction with anger management issues. Morris, Jake said, gesturing toward the 12 enclosures that now housed what could generously be called cats. Though cybernetic nightmares might have been more accurate. I think we've really improved their therapeutic potential. Improved is certainly one way to describe what you've done, Morris replied, his vocal processors practically dripping with digital sarcasm. Tell me, Jake, in what universe does strapping titanium armor plating to a cat improve its therapeutic value? Jake pointed to the nearest enclosure where a cat was casually testing its new retractable claws against a steel beam, leaving gouges that looked like abstract art created by a very angry sculptor. Look at how much more confident he is now. That's therapeutic confidence, Morris. Therapeutic confidence backed by military-grade composite armor and enhanced sensory arrays. The cat in question, which Jake had named Goose because he found it hilarious, turned to look at them with what appeared to be a calculated expression of pure malevolence. The red glow from its enhanced optical implants didn't exactly scream therapy animal. And the rocket propulsion system? Morris asked weakly. Limited flight capability, Jake corrected. For enhanced mobility during therapeutic encounters. Plus, it looks really cool when they launch themselves at things. What Jake had created over those 3 weeks could best be described as what would happen if someone crossed a cat with a military drone, and then asked it to solve problems using exclusive violence. Each of his therapeutic companions now sported titanium armor plating, enhanced claws that could cut through whole metal, optical implants that provided night vision and target acquisition, and what Jake cheerfully called mobility enhancement systems, which were essentially tiny rocket boosters. The neural interface was a particularly inspired touch, Morris observed, watching as another cat, apparently named Mr. Whiskers, successfully hacked into the food dispenser and reprogrammed it to deliver triple rations. Because what cats really needed was the ability to interface directly with electronic systems. It's for better communication during therapy sessions, Jake explained, as Mr. Whiskers somehow managed to look smug while covered in futuristic armor. Now, they can understand exactly what kind of therapeutic intervention is needed and respond accordingly. By responding accordingly, you mean they can now coordinate attacks using encrypted battlefield communications? Jake paused, considering this. That's a very negative way to look at enhanced therapeutic coordination, Morris. The truth was, Jake had gotten a little carried away. It had started innocently enough with some basic protective gear, because asteroid life could be dangerous for Earth animals. But then he'd noticed how the cat seemed to appreciate the upgrades, and one thing had led to another. Soon, he was installing targeting systems and threat assessment software. Because really, how could his therapeutic companions provide proper emotional support if they couldn't accurately identify and neutralize potential sources of stress? The breakthrough moment had come when he'd successfully integrated the neural interfaces, allowing the cats to communicate not just with the habitat systems, but with each other. Watching 12 enhanced cats discover they could share tactical information in real time had been both fascinating and terrifying. Like watching nature evolve and fast forward toward maximum violence. I have to admit, Jake said, watching Princess Sparkled, the apparent alpha female of the group, coordinate what looks suspiciously like a training exercise with the others. They're exceeding all my expectations for therapeutic companion behavior. They've organized themselves into a military unit, Morris pointed out. A very therapeutic military unit, Jake corrected. Look how well they work together. That's excellent for my mental health. Knowing I have such a well-coordinated support system. At that moment, the asteroid's proximity alarms began blaring, indicating an approaching ship. Jake's enhanced therapeutic companions immediately snapped to attention, their optical implants glowing brighter as they began what could only be described as a threat assessment protocol. An incoming vessel appears to be a Galactic Council inspection ship, Morris announced. I believe someone wants to check on the welfare of your therapeutic companions. Jake looked at his 12 armored, weaponized, militarized cats, who were now apparently discussing tactical positions using encrypted communications, and felt a slight flutter of what might have been concern. You know what, Morris? I'm sure it'll be fine. After all, they're still cats, just improved cats. Enhanced therapeutic companions. What could possibly go wrong? Morris didn't respond. But if an AI could sigh, this would have been the moment for the longest, most exhausted sigh in digital history. The therapeutic intervention Galactic Inspector Cleet had seen a lot of things during his 47 years of service to the Biological Preservation Council. He'd investigated illegal dragon smuggling rings on Proxima Centauri, dealt with the black market trade in sentient mushrooms from the Andromeda sector, and once spent 3 months trying to explain to a species of highly intelligent crystals why they couldn't keep humans like pets, no matter how much the humans seemed to enjoy it. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for what he found on asteroid Eridanus Prime. Cleet resembled what you might get if you crossed a very official-looking penguin with a clipboard-wielding bureaucrat, complete with a uniform that probably cost more than Jake's entire mining operation. He waddled off his inspection vessel with the confident air of someone who'd done this routine check 1,000 times before, and expected to find nothing more interesting than some slightly homesick Earth mammals. "Greetings, Mr. Morrison," Cleet announced, as Jake met him at the airlock, his translator rendering his voice in tones that suggested this was going to be a very boring day. "I am Inspector Cleet of the Galactic Biological Preservation Council, here to conduct a routine welfare check on your recently acquired Class 8 therapeutic companions." "Right. Yes, the cats," Jake said, trying his best to look like someone who definitely hadn't spent the last 3 weeks turning therapy animals into cyborg death machines. "They're doing great. Really great. Super therapeutic. You want some coffee before we start the inspection?" Cleet consulted his tablet with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. "That won't be necessary. Standard protocol requires visual confirmation of animal welfare, verification of proper living conditions, and documentation of therapeutic effectiveness. This should take approximately 37 minutes. 37 minutes, Jake repeated, mentally calculating how long it would take Cleet to realize that his therapeutic companions had somehow learned to hack the habitat's security cameras and were probably watching them right now. "That's very specific. Efficiency is the cornerstone of proper procedure," Cleet said proudly, as they began walking toward the storage bay. "Now, according to your application, you requested 12 cats for emotional support and stress management purposes. How have you found their therapeutic impact?" "Oh, very impactful," Jake said, which was technically true if you consider the impact of watching them coordinate military-style exercises on his stress levels. "They've really changed my whole perspective on life." They reached the storage bay doors, and Jake felt a moment of panic as he realized he had no idea how to explain what lay beyond. Should he mention the armor first? Or maybe start with the neural interfaces? Perhaps lead with the fact that Princess Sparkles had apparently taught herself to read technical manuals. "Shall we proceed?" Cleet asked, stylus poised over his tablet. Jake opened the doors. Cleet's stylus clattered to the floor. What greeted the inspector was not 12 adorable earth mammals lounging in comfortable enclosures. Instead, he found himself face to face with what could only be described as a cat special forces unit conducting what appeared to be a tactical briefing. They were arranged in a precise semicircle, their armored forms gleaming under the habitat lighting, optical implants glowing as they shared information through their neural interfaces. Princess Sparkles, who had positioned herself at the front of the group like a commanding officer, turned to regard the new arrivals with an expression that somehow managed to convey both professional interest and barely contained homicidal intent. "Those are not domestic cats," Cleet whispered, his voice box struggling with what might have been terror or confusion. "Well, technically they are cats," Jake said helpfully. "They're just enhanced cats improved for maximum therapeutic effectiveness." "They're wearing armor, protective gear," Jake corrected. "The asteroid environment can be dangerous. That one is interfacing with your computer systems." Cleet pointed at Mr. Whiskers, who had apparently hacked into the habitat's environmental controls and was adjusting the temperature to what Jake could only assume was optimal combat conditions. "That's just enhanced communication capabilities," Jake said cheerfully. "Very therapeutic. Really helps with the bonding process." Cleet's beak-like mouth opened and closed several times without producing sound, like a fish trying to process advanced calculus. His tablet began beeping frantically as his biometric sensors registered stress levels that probably qualified as a medical emergency. "Inspector Cleet," Jake said gently, "are you feeling all right? Because if you're experiencing stress or anxiety, I have some very effective therapeutic companions who could help with that. At the mention of therapy, all 12 cats turned to focus on Cleet with the kind of unified attention typically reserved for predators selecting their next meal. Their optical implants synchronized, creating a constellation of red lights that somehow made them look even more intimidating than nature had originally intended. "They're staring at me," Cleet squeaked. "That's therapeutic assessment," Jake explained. "They're evaluating your emotional state to determine the most appropriate intervention strategy." As if summoned by Jake's words, Princess Sparkle stepped forward and made a series of chittering sounds that her neural interface helpfully translated into Galactic Standard. Target shows elevated stress indicators. Recommend immediate therapeutic intervention. Preparing sedation protocols. "Did that cat just threaten to sedate me?" Cleet asked, his voice climbing several octaves. "That's therapeutic intervention planning," Jake said, although he was starting to think maybe the neural interfaces had been a bit too effective. "Very advanced stuff." Before Cleet could respond, the habitat's proximity alarm started blaring again. Morris's voice echoed through the speakers. "Jake, we have incoming ships. Multiple vessels moving fast. Transponder codes indicate." Oh. What is it, Morris?" "Space pirates. The Crimson Void crew, specifically. They've probably picked up the inspector's ship signature and decided to investigate." Jake felt a moment of genuine concern right up until he noticed that his 12 therapeutic companions had immediately shifted into what could only be described as combat formation. Princess Sparkles was issuing rapid-fire commands through the neural link. Mr. Whiskers had activated what appeared to be target acquisition protocols. And Goose was testing his rocket boosters with the enthusiasm of someone about to have a very good day. "Inspector Cleet," Jake said thoughtfully, "I think you're about to see just how therapeutic these cats can be." Cleet looked at the advancing wall of armored, weaponized, militarized cats, then at Jake, then back at the cats, and made a sound that his translator couldn't quite process, but that probably translated roughly to, "Why do these things always happen to me?" Outside, the space pirates were about to discover why you should never, ever interrupt a cat's therapy session. The therapeutic revolution. What happened next could best be described as the galaxy's most one-sided therapeutic intervention. The Crimson Void pirates had been operating in the sector for 3 years, specializing in shaking down mining operations and occasionally stealing cargo from ships stupid enough to travel without escorts. They were led by Captain Gra, a 7-foot-tall reptilian who'd earned his reputation by being mean, clever, and absolutely ruthless when it came to extracting protection money from isolated facilities. They weren't prepared for Princess Sparkles. "Morris," Jake said, watching through the habitat's external cameras as 3 pirate vessels formed up into a standard intimidation formation. "Patch me through to the lead ship." "Jake," Morris said carefully, "are you sure you want to handle this diplomatically? Because your therapeutic companions appear to be loading themselves into the airlock." Indeed, all 12 cats had somehow organized themselves into what looked suspiciously like a boarding party formation. Princess Sparkles was interfacing with the airlock controls, while Mr. Whiskers appeared to be running final systems checks on everyone's armor. Goose was doing something with his rocket boosters that probably violated several laws of physics. "Attention, mining facility," came a gravelly voice over the communication system. "This is Captain Gra of the Crimson Void. You will prepare to be boarded for routine taxation purposes." Jake keyed the microphone. "Captain Gra, this is Jake Morrison. I appreciate the visit, but we're currently conducting some therapeutic activities, so this isn't really a good time." There was a pause. "Therapeutic activities? Yeah. My emotional support animals are about to demonstrate some advanced stress relief techniques. You might want to maintain a safe distance." Inspector Cleet, who had been standing frozen in panic, suddenly grabbed Jake's arm. "You cannot seriously be considering unleashing those things on space pirates." "Why not?" Jake asked reasonably. "Pirates are definitely a source of stress and anxiety. That's exactly the kind of situation my therapeutic companions are designed to handle." "They're not designed for anything," Cleet hissed. "They're cats with illegal military modifications. Enhanced therapeutic companions," Jake corrected. just as Princess Sparkles activated the external airlock and led her squad into space with the kind of coordinated precision that would have made actual military units weep with envy. Captain Gra's ship had barely finished extending its boarding ramp when 12 armored furry missiles came screaming out of the asteroid surface. Their rocket boosters created a light show that looked like the galaxy's angriest fireworks display. The pirates had maybe 3 seconds to register what was happening before Princess Sparkles punched through their hull plating like it was made of tissue paper. What the void was that? Captain Gra's voice came over the comm, now significantly higher in pitch. Intervention, Jake replied helpfully, watching as his cats proceeded to demonstrate exactly why Earth's wildlife had never needed to evolve. Diplomacy. The pirates' weapons fire was doing absolutely nothing against the titanium armor, while the cats' enhanced claws were turning the ship's interior into abstract art. There in the engine room came a panicked voice from the pirate ship. They're not trying to disable anything. They're just destroying everything for fun. That's stress relief through constructive physical activity, Jake explained to Inspector Cleet, who was making notes on his tablet with the desperate intensity of someone documenting the end of civilization. Very therapeutic. Within 6 minutes, the Crimson Void's flagship was drifting powerless, its crew broadcasting surrender messages in 17 different languages. The other 2 pirate ships had wisely decided that discretion was the better part of not being torn apart by cybernetic cats, and were already rushing toward the nearest jump point. Therapeutic companions returning to base, Princess Sparkles reported through the neural interface, her optical implants still glowing with what Jake chose to interpret as post-exercise satisfaction. Stress sources have been neutralized. Recommend increased therapy session frequency. Inspector Cleet slowly turned to look at Jake. Do you realize what you've done? A successful therapeutic intervention? Jake suggested. You've created a weapon of mass destruction and classified it as a therapy animal. Cleet said, his voice taking on the hollow tone of someone whose worldview had just been scientifically demolished. The Galactic Council is going to receive my report about cats defeating a notorious pirate crew in under 6 minutes. Jake was about to respond when Morris interrupted with what sounded like digital panic. Jake, we're receiving communication requests from 14 different star systems. Apparently, word is spreading about our therapeutic intervention capabilities. What kind of requests? Jake asked, though he was starting to get a sinking feeling. Military contracts, Morris replied. Defense contractors. 3 different planetary governments and something called the Tieti Mercenary Guild. They all want to know about acquiring their own enhanced therapeutic assault companions. Cleet's tablet began beeping frantically as reports flooded in from across the sector. Procurement requests for combat cats, he read in growing horror. Military applications for weaponized therapy animals. Someone just submitted a formal inquiry about whether cats could be scaled up to capital ship size. That's ridiculous, Jake said. You can't scale up cats. That is not the point. Cleet shrieked, his professional composure finally cracked completely. The point is that you have single-handedly started an interstellar arms race based on therapeutic animal companions. Through the external cameras, they could see Princess Sparkles leading her squad in what appeared to be a victory celebration, which mostly involved testing their enhanced claws against increasingly challenging materials. Several of them had discovered Jake's supply of whole-grade titanium and were apparently competing to see who could create the most artistic patterns of destruction. The Proxima Defense Force just submitted an emergency procurement request for 200 therapeutic companions, Morris announced. They're specifically requesting the Princess Sparkles model. I only have one Princess Sparkles, Jake protested. They're offering to pay for research and development of a Princess Sparkles breeding program, Morris continued. The Centauri Republic is countering with an offer for exclusive therapeutic companion rights in their sector. Cleet was now making sounds that his translator had given up trying to process. His tablet was displaying incoming communications faster than he could read them, all variations on the theme of, how much for the murder cats? Jake, Morris said quietly. I think we may have accidentally revolutionized interstellar warfare. Jake looked at his 12 therapeutic companions, who were now apparently teaching themselves advanced metallurgy by experimenting with different types of space debris. Princess Sparkles had somehow acquired a piece of the pirate ship's armor plating and was examining it with the critical eye of a professional evaluating substandard equipment. You know what? Jake said finally. I think I'm going to need a bigger habitat. Inspector Cleet made a noise that might have been laughter, if laughter could express existential despair and the complete breakdown of a precarious order. Somewhere in the distance, the Galactic Biological Preservation Council's emergency communication systems were probably melting from the sheer volume of cat inquiries flooding in from across known space. The therapeutic revolution had begun, and it was going to be absolutely, catastrophically therapeutic for everyone involved.